Okay, so it's time to head out from Elko, Nevada, over to Centennial Airport in Denver. I have a meeting there with Independence Aviation, and then I am possibly going to the Front Range Airport to meet someone to discuss Lancers. He's a Lear pilot, and I have lots of questions about the Lear, so that'll be interesting to meet with him. However, the weather is looking a little bit sporty. Let's go take a look at the route. Okay, so looking at Centennial, which is down here, so we're looking at Denver, the Denver area, then Colorado Springs below that. Centennial Airport is just southwest of Denver. And my original route that I was hoping to use would have had me coming in around just south of the Hayden VOR, along this road through Phippsburg and Yampa, excuse me, over to the Kremling VOR, and then a straight shot east to eventually cross at the Rollins Pass, or Rollins Pass, I believe it's called. Jeff Van West actually did a lot of flying over there years ago, and he corrected me on the pronunciation. It is Rollins, not Rollins. He's very big on pronunciation. Anyway, continuing, had I made it through Rollins Pass, I would have then continued on to Centennial. I test flew this in the sim several times. I explored all these different passes and practiced it in the sim, got a couple of cool screenshots of what the clearance would look like, used the profile view in full flight to get a feel for what my terrain clearance would be over the ridges. And passing through at 14,000 feet, I'd have about 2,500 feet of terrain clearance or more, which is great. However, even with that terrain clearance, not a great idea to be flying there if the winds are super strong and perpendicular to the ridge, or anything close to perpendicular to the ridge. And so looking at the weather this morning, the best way to get winds there, near as I can tell, there's a pass south of Rollins Pass called Berthoud Pass. Berthoud or Berthoud, that pass, the one south. So you follow the road to the south past the Moffat Tunnel. Spectacular in the sim, by the way. That's Highway 40, I guess. It looked amazing in the sim. I can't even imagine what it's like in real life. But so you got the windy roads and then a really, really hard left just south of the microwave tower. And the terrain is quite low there, so you can drop down and life is good. The issue, though, is the wind over there. So the reason I point out that pass, the one beginning with a B, is it's the one that has weather reporting online that you can get access to. So heading over here to the Centennial Airport, we look at the pass with a B, and it is blowing out of the northwest at 36 to 42 knots. It's a non-starter. For my first exposure to flying in the Rockies, just not going for it. I'm not exactly conservative in my flight planning. I tend to be more on the aggressive side, I would say. And for me, this feels all wrong. So as much as I planned the bejesus out of it and flew it in the sim and know my airplane can do it and know I can go to that altitude and I know that I'll be at that altitude for just a few minutes and all of that good stuff, it's all for nothing because I'm not going to get ripped to shreds by whatever turbulence, mechanical turbulence and rotors that is going to cause. So I have my alternate plan. My alternate plan, which was actually going to be my original plan, believe it or not, until I realized, hey, you know, I probably could cross the Rockies if the weather's not terrible. So my alternate plan is to do it on the north side. So we'll cross around here, and again, and I can go as far north as I need. And if it means diverting for fuel, just to give you an idea, this is 571 nautical miles. So we do have a buffer there. However, if I need to go considerably further north, I'll be getting close to hitting the reserves. So I'll be prepared for that if we approach this area and it's already just brutal, we'll land somewhere and regroup. Or just keep heading further north all the way up into Wyoming, like up here to Rollins and the Medicine Bow VOR, the terrain is considerably lower there, so that gives us a much wider berth around the Rockies if need be. And we'll just check out our fuel situation at that time. Okay, but the current plan B is to continue here towards the Dixon Airport. That's when the terrain starts picking up. Cross over these, or maybe go slightly north of them. We'll see how it looks when we get there. And hit the Bacay intersection. That's what it is. And then southeast, and basically we're crossing over the northern part of the Rockies, over to the Barger intersection, and then straight shot south to Centennial. Now, I don't know what kind of turbulence we're going to get on the east side here. If it's blowing really hard there and there's any sort of wave, we could be in for a bit of a rough ride there. So if I need to just keep heading east, I will. If I need to descend, I will. If I need to stay high, I will. We'll try whatever we need to try. And I will also consider heading northeast. I suspect if I get away from that range and head northeast, so further away and further north, I suspect things would smooth out. So we could plan to go into Cheyenne if need be, and even further if we need to. I know for someone who's flown there, it might sound like I'm being just completely overkill and conservative. I don't know if it is or not, but I want to make sure I have lots and lots of options, because I don't know what I don't know about flying here. I've done as much research as I can, done as much reading as I can. Went to the Colorado Pilots Association website a couple of weeks ago and was reading through that in some detail. There are experiences of some devastating turbulence in this area. So we've got to really, really be careful. Also, it's not fun to discuss, but there's also part of the website that shows every fatal accident in the Rockies since around 2007 or so, and it's sobering to see how many there are. So I looked at a bunch of them, and it's typically VFR into IMC or a stall spin accident. So they exceeded the capabilities of the airplane, possibly hit a downdraft, possibly in a box canyon, whatever it was, they ran out of legs and went down. So I feel a little bit better knowing that I have a plane which is slightly more capable. I'm not under the delusion that it can outclimb anything. In fact, its climb performance up there is not great. But having that excess energy will give me some buffer to be able to climb a little bit, or be able to sustain a downdraft just for a little while, as long as it's a modest downdraft. But more to the point, it just gets in and out of there relatively quickly. That's certainly helpful. Anyway, so what I'm saying is I prepared as much as I could, and even so, I still feel like I need a lot of different outs, because this is the first time going into this kind of situation. Well, actually it's the second, I suppose. Taos was the first exposure, but it was a very, very nice day. So this may not go the same way. All right, so that's the plan there in terms of the route, the tail end of the route. Let's look at the rest of the route from the beginning. Okay, we're over here at Elko. So it'll be northeast out of Elko. There's good old Route 80 again, so we'll have Route 80 to our left the whole time, which is nice. Then we passed this Wells Harriet Airport near the town of Wells. Continuing towards Lucin VOR. The reason I'm doing that is to get around restricted areas right here. We'll find out if they are in fact active. They are. There's never a time when these are not active. Great. We probably won't even bother asking, honestly. So continue over to Lucin, head east across Salt Lake, where actually the Bravo is not a consideration, which is good. That crossing is 22 miles, that's fine. We'll be up pretty high. And then we continue east, and then we start hitting the first of some terrain here. And I'm interested in the ride here. This will be possibly a harbinger for our arrival at Denver. Okay, another airport right there. Let's see, terrain is going to be, this is where those minimum sector altitudes can be handy. So the 9,500 would give us terrain clearance there. We're going to be up at 11.5, so we have at least 2K of terrain clearance over the highest point in that area. And generally speaking, it'll be more than that, because for the route of flight we have, it looks like will be, the altitudes are less than 9,500. Okay, continuing past Evanston Burns. I don't see anything too interesting. We may drift slightly north of this route, more towards Fort Bridger, VOR, because there is lower terrain there. So we'll see how things are working out, but otherwise, if we have suitable clearance, we'll just go exactly as this is published right here, or exactly as we've drawn. There's another Manila airport. Look at that. It's the second Manila that isn't in the Philippines that I've seen on the trip. Okay, so we're passing the Flaming Gorge Reservoir. Sounds cool. Continuing east. Let's see. If need be, we could deviate to the south here over Dutch John. Takes over lower terrain if we wanted to do that. But that might put us a bit far south of where we really want to be, so I'd only do that if the ride's rough. I suspect we'll be alright going through this at 11.5. Alright, continuing to Dixon, and then we've reviewed it from Dixon to the destination. So that's the route. No special airspace considerations. We're already going around. The only restricted airspace that's a factor will be north of the Salt Lake Bravo, so I'm happy with that. So let's brief. So I predict I'll probably be out of here by 8:30 local. I am bummed after all this planning that I'm now no longer thinking of going through the pass. I put a lot of work into that and was looking forward to seeing that visually. Seeing that part of the Rockies would have been a huge privilege. Definitely spectacular visuals. Again, I always bring it back to I know the sim, it sounds kind of hokey, and how can you really get much pleasure from flying the sim, but when the visuals in the sim look incredible, you know that the real world version is going to be, a step above that, so I was looking forward to seeing it. But I'd like to see it and live, and not just live, but also not, get the tar kicked out of me. I've got a lot of equipment in the airplane, and the MacBook and things like that, and there are accounts of, I remember reading a Mountain Wave account over in the Bishop area, which has some of the strongest wave in the country, and there was someone in a 182 who ran into wave, and they had a digital VSI that measured peak climbs and descents as well as a normal VSI, and they measured plus and minus 8,000 feet a minute sustained in that wave near Bishop, and they said it was easily the most terrifying thing that ever happened, and they still don't know how the plane structurally held during that experience. So it's not to be ignored. I don't think that's news to anyone, but it still was. I mean, I'd read about wave in the past, but reading that account was a very visceral account, and they felt lucky to be alive. So I've definitely kept that in the back of my mind, and if it looks somewhat shady, it was going to be a no-go for me, and I'd go with my alternate route. So that's what we're doing. All right, well, the brief is here. Oh, yes, Salt Lake. I remember looking at this last night. That's going to be interesting to review. That might slow us down in the briefing a little bit, but here we go. Okay, there is an AirMet for IFR through the area that we're passing through, the top part of Salt Lake. Basically, there's very low cloud and fog there, but I believe we'll be above it based on the RUC soundings, which I'll pull up in a little bit. Okay, there's an AirMet for turbulence. That's not a great sign. Okay. Moderate turbulence below flight level 180. All right. Not shocking. That's high turbulence. There's low level wind shear at the bottom end. Great. Okay, it looks like we are just starting to catch up to the back of that cold front there. And you can see those lines of pressure are pretty close together, which would explain some of the high winds in the area, but it seems fairly localized. Looks like we picked just the wrong time to be there. Little change through the period, yeah. Okay, so let's look at METARs. Alright, so we're good at Elko. It's 13 below zero. Good lord. Good thing I have this super duper sweater. Alright, however, once we get into Salt Lake, it's low IFR. It's overcast 300, broken 600, overcast 500. Doesn't sound too good, does it? Well, it's certainly not good if you're trying to land there. However, we're not trying to land there. We'll be transitioning well above it. And I have reason to believe the tops are actually pretty high. Let's see what we can get in terms of tops for Salt Lake. See what they say here at least. Utah. Overcast clouds at 6,000, tops at 8. That's for northwest Utah. Northeastern Utah is scattered cirrus. Okay, until 5. I see. Yep. So we'll be well above that. Wyoming. Colorado. It's not expecting anything in terms of ceilings. Great. Looking at TAFs. Okay, we do see in the Ogden area, so again, just in Utah, and we'll be above all of that. And the winds are actually really mild over at Denver in terms of what they're forecasting. It is unfortunate that's going to be rough in the pass there. Okay, winds loft. Up at 11.5. Okay, just looking closely. So out of the west-northwest, increasing in strength as we get closer to the destination. That's what I'm seeing there. And then later in the day, they are much the same. Okie dokie. Elko, we're already aware of. Let's see, anything useful? Okay, Elko we're already aware of. For runway 523, marking not standard, snowbanks, yep, very good. Destination. Those are obstructions, no airspace, the runway Centennial. Lights out of service, don't care, distance remaining sign. The 9,000 foot distance remaining sign is missing at Centennial. Work in progress on the northeast edge of taxiway Charlie 5 run-up area, okay. And taxiway Delta between taxiway Delta 1 and Delta 4 is closed until February 19th, okay. So we could mark that if we were being diligent. So let's go, so it's Delta between Delta 1 and Delta 4. Delta between 1 and 4. Okay. How is that not just all of Delta? I don't see Delta going anywhere else. Okay. Delta. Closed. Can I just say taxiway Delta's closed? What am I missing there? Delta between Delta 1 and 4 is closed. All right. Fair enough. Done with that annotation. I am not sure where they are on the field. I will just have to ask when I get there. Very good. Okay. Let me show you the ruck soundings real quick for Salt Lake. This is, I actually looked at this before going to bed last night. To try and film every single time I did anything on full flight, during the trip, so you could see any of the planning I was doing. It just isn't that practical. When you're about to go to sleep and you go, you know what, let me just have a quick look so I have an idea of what's coming up. But when I saw what the TAF was, what I did was I just looked at current weather overnight and saw it was IMC. Then I looked at the TAF, so I thought, I wonder if that'll clear off. And it wasn't clearing. I thought, okay, two things. How widespread is this weather? And B, how high does it go? And so I went to the ruck soundings and it showed very low. So, all right, so we'll go to ruck soundings for the SKU-T log P chart. And before you lose interest, don't worry, this is quick and easy. Okay, let's just get let's get 5 hours worth as an HTML5 plot. Make sure you choose HTML plot, because because iPads generally don't run Java very well, so you don't want to run the Java app. You want to use HTML5 and then it should show just fine. Okay, great. And as you can see from this chart, what did I miss there? SLC, 5 hours, up 40. I don't get it. Try it with 3 hours real quick. Salt Lake, yeah? Salt Lake's right. Okay, it's working out. I'm not sure I couldn't do it for 5 hours. Thinking. I guess if they ran it a while ago, if the last model was run a while ago, 5 hours may take it past the end of its original forecast period. That's the only thing I can think of. Okay, moving on to clean up the chart. So this plots temperature and dew point. Where they come together or very close together, you have a layer of clouds. Where they diverge, you typically have drier air and no clouds. So as you can see, starting from the bottom, the red and blue are together, hence the ceiling at Salt Lake. Where they diverge, that's at about the 5,000 foot line. So if I'm going to zoom in here and scroll to the right, I'm going to do my best here. There we go. So that second blue line from the bottom is the 5,000 foot line, also known as, well, however many millibars that is. And you can see that they diverge pretty quickly. So two things to note. One, it's a very thin layer. Two, there's a colossal inversion going on, which is good for us because it is below freezing at the surface, right? You see the temperature lines there. Just to the right of where the red and blue are, just to the right of that is the 0 degree line. That's the freezing line. So it's actually below freezing at the surface, which we've seen in the METARs for Salt Lake. However, as soon as you start climbing, the temperature rockets up to a high of 4.2 degrees Celsius. So that's awesome. Just try and get that stuff out of the way. Let me click up there. Ignore what I just clicked on, it's not relevant. I'm just trying to get the label out of the way. So it's actually going to be 4 degrees, and then we reapproach freezing just after about 10,000 feet. So that's good to know. If I had any kind of icing issue, it's not going to happen today, but if there was something, I would be able to drop down to right around 7,000 to 8,000 feet and be in +4, which is in better shape in terms of shedding ice. But I don't anticipate any ice, so basically we're just not going to be able to see the ground. That's what I suspect will happen around the Salt Lake area. And that'll do it. This also shows the winds aloft, and you can see how they increase as you go higher and how they also change direction. Very good. So 11.5, 9.5 will be fine for us over there.